An amazing ride. Who came up with this way of folding the seats? That person... Damn it, I can't fit!
Твою мать, я не помещаюсь.
How do you do this? It's not working. Damn it!
Чтоб тебе.
Fingers! Do you understand what the problem is? Despite my best efforts, no matter how much I attempt, I find that I am unable to completely fold down the seats of the Niva. The hinges won't allow it to go that way. It just doesn't fold this way. Did I say it right about patience? Leave a comment, I've given up. I often find myself lacking patience, wanting things to happen quickly. This impatience shows when I have to wait, like in long lines or for a slow computer. It's the Niva, a vehicle for off-road capability and comfort. If I manage to fold the back seat, you'll see how much the trunk space increases. A whole 585 liters. Looks like I tore it off like this. In short, it's like this. This is the most ridiculous way to fold the seats. No, of course, someone will say it's with the old seats. And still, it's nonsense. The roar of bridges, the rubber of joints, and the echoing sounds of traffic. You world. And if Nivas indeed stop roaring, then they're truly no longer Nivas. And it means they're trying to pull a fast one on us again. But I don't want to go off-road. Well, who doesn't know how Niva drives off-road? Here we go again. I have to engage the front axle. I won't get tired of saying that the 90s were the most productive years in our country. The automotive industry had every chance to reach a new level. Honestly, many tried. The automotive industry had every chance to reach a new level. Honestly, many tried. And the reason for all this was that almost all Soviet models had hopelessly outdated. On top of everything, foreign cars flooded our market, mostly used ones, of course. But that's only half the trouble. Our brands, like Volga, Moskvich, and Zhiguli, started to lose ground in the export market, even though they were relatively inexpensive. Standing apart from all was VAZ 2121. It was in demand. It was purchased in almost every corner of the world. It was bought and it was exported to more than 100 countries around the world. And in the late 70s, let's say in Austria, 90% of all SUVs were Nivas. To fully understand, it's important to remember that the VAZ 2121 didn't just appear out of nowhere. The birth of the machine for the countryside began long before the party said, "We need it." The first ones were at ZLK. The test drives of the prototype models had already taken place, and everyone was waiting for orders from the higher-ups. I told you about those Moskvich cars. They're there. The government realized the need for a four-wheel drive passenger car only in the late and decided to hold a competition among our industrial giants. And ZLK, IZH, and you, I won't beat around the bush, you already know everything. You were defeated. There were several reasons, but the main one is the high technology of the project and its originality. And the tests showed just how much more adaptable, reliable, and most importantly, more comfortable the Niva was compared to its competitors at that time, the Moskvich 415 and the IJ 14. But to be honest, the IJ 14 didn't fall far behind the Niva, but Izhmash didn't have any spare production capacity. A unibody, metal body, and SUV without a frame. Was anyone else doing something like this in the world back then? No, there wasn't anything like that back then. This is the first mass-produced SUV with a unibody structure. An SUV? Yes, it's an SUV small. The car is compact. Its own weight is 1150 kilo. Most parts of VAZ 2121 came from Zhiguli production. The height and its own weight is 1150 kilograms. The next distinctive feature of the cars was that almost all the components, assemblies of the VAZ 2121, were taken from the production of the Zhiguli. Hey, this significantly saved costs in production, and they knew how to count money in the USSR. Sometimes it did lead to unfortunate consequences, but that's not the case with the Niva. And here's something else. The Niva has front disc brakes, which was unheard of for SUVs at that time. And as for the all-wheel drive system, you know, it was a game changer. I'm not joking. It was the development of the all-wheel drive transmission for the MAZ 500 that led the Togliatti team to the right decision. In a nutshell, here's how it went. Back in the 1950s, they found out at the Minsk automobile plant that if you make a disconnectable front axle, its components and assemblies wear out quickly. The reason? In the absence of a center differential, the axles are rigidly connected, and when there's a difference in wheel speed, say, while going around a corner, a parasitic braking torque occurs on one of the wheels. Well, and so on, which ultimately leads to breakdowns. Moreover, the driving wheels experience less rolling resistance than the driven ones. And to avoid such consequences, they made a permanent all-wheel drive with additional center differential. The idea was brought to life. Pyotr Mikhailovich Prusov, the lead designer of the VAZ 2121 project. And he also certainly wanted to make the gearbox and transfer case one unit, very much like in the UAZ. But the Italian partners closely and meticulously monitored the processes at VAZ and did not allow any design changes to the gearbox. Catstrans. Of course, the 21 had its own signature components specifically designed for increased and heightened loads and stresses. Additionally, the design was carefully reviewed and thoroughly scrutinized. The front suspension features powerful forged arms, reinforced springs, and the rear axle rests on springs instead of leaf springs, which was the norm for SUVs back then. And now actually, what's the point of all this fuss and why am I showing you the Niva again? This Niva is precisely an attempt to get out of the situation in the country. There was no money, nothing at all, but the cars needed updating. This is the VAZ 2119. A transitional model from the magnificent to the strange. The 1.7-liter engine from the VAZ 21213, which didn't even exist at that time. 2123, which didn't even exist at that time. Previously, the 21st was equipped with a VAZ 2706 engine, as well as a 1.3-liter VAZ 21011 engine. They wanted more power than the six-cylinder. There was nothing else in mass production. The folks from Togliatti looked at their athletes and how they were boosting their horsepower, and they did the same. In the press of those years, it was solemnly reported that the Euro 6 engine appeared in a new guise. Its engine displacement increased from 1569 to 1690 cubic centimeters, and the power grew from 75 to 81 horsepower cubic centimeters, and the power increased from 75 to 81 HP. 7 liters? 5 mil. It was, of course, very nice. A whole 5 horses. But here they used an electronic contactless ignition system, which simply removed the contact group with the cam from under the hood. And also the new 21073 carburetor with the Solix system. This solution made the car easier to operate overall, reduced exhaust toxicity, and lowered fuel consumption. That's what they wrote in the magazine Za Rulem. I had nothing to do with it. I believe them. And they also installed new aluminum radiator. It's wider, which is good. It's cheaper to produce, but the best part is that since it's narrower, the hole for the crooked starter has been preserved. No, probably not a hole. The hole! Next, in the transitional model, you will no longer find a crosspiece between the gearbox and the transfer case. Here there's a constant velocity joint, the design of which is similar to that of the outer joint in the front-wheel drive. This is beneficial both for the movement of the Niva and for the alignment of the transfer case. In addition, they installed a different clutch. an intermediate drive shaft with increased strength, the internal seals of the front-wheel drive. The main drive from front to back has a gear ratio of 3.9. The interior. Everything here is debatable. Some respected sources claim, and I believe them too, that the interior was completely the 2121 model. But in the photos from the same magazine Za Rulyom, it's clear that the interior has already been updated. By the way, when removing the dashboard and various little things, it was clear that the entire interior, the whole atmosphere, is original. It hasn't changed. By the way, as you might already be aware, there's a variant, but it's not entirely certain, that 219 model slightly changed a bit during its production process. And other than that, the beautiful marquise, this is the Niva as it is. Forward. The car was kept on the assembly line for a short time as a temporary phenomenon. In 1991, the pre-production prototypes were released. Mass production continued. 1993 to 1994, when the factory finally started producing the VAZ 2121-3. There were attempts to install 1.7 engines, GM injectors. There were even diesel versions of the VAZ 2121. The focus shifted primarily towards the development and enhancement of gasoline engines, which included a slightly rethought suspension system and a kind of new body design that featured a strange, almost ridiculous interior. Yeah, damn, I almost forgot. A 5-speed transmission is already installed here. I've come across Niva's 2121 with 5-speed gearboxes, but those were cars that were sold abroad. So I have a question. When did the VAZ 2005 with its 5-speed transmission come out? Why didn't we put 5-speed transmissions in Nivas here in our homeland? The auto industry took a long time to get going, yeah, and even today it doesn't pick up speed very quickly, but here's what I'll tell you. If for some unknown reason the Niva, which is a well-known and beloved vehicle with a rich history, turns into a rebranded Chinese car, or if they stop producing the Niva altogether, it will be a significant disgrace for the factory, tarnishing its long-standing reputation and disappointing many loyal customers. But that's just my personal opinion, much like my ongoing hunt for truth and understanding, which continues with unwavering determination and passion.
Так.
Here we go!